One of the biggest mysteries still surrounding the FNAF timeline is what exactly is Fallfest? When exactly did it happen, and why does it matter at all? Well, looking over the information we've gotten from Secret of the Mimic, Help Wanted and Help Wanted 2, and a couple other sources, I think we have a pretty good idea of it, as long as we put it all together and really try to figure it out. Slices, put on your aprons and let's bake ourselves a theory. The first time we directly heard about Fallfest was from Help Wanted 1, where the Curse of Dreadbear DLC showed us the Fallfest of 83 lobby. It was in this open field with hills all around, a barn to our left, and a lake in front of us. Also the FNAF 4 house on the hill, giving us more information about where this might be located. But something to always keep in mind about Help Wanted 1 is that it is an in-universe game. So anything we see from it, while we should take it into account, we do need to double check if it's at all accurate. That in mind, some of the various minigames we see definitely seem like they'd be a part of Fallfest. Maybe not things like the one where you're walking down the hallway of the FNAF 4 house, but seeing the plushies in the pumpkin patch and seeing that Foxy ride, those feel like they could be Fallfest attractions, especially the maze. Whether or not you're actually chased by Grim Foxy. But the setting is really all we learn about Fallfest in Help Wanted 1. Help Wanted 2, however, is a bit more enlightening. We get more merch about Fallfest, showing us that it at least started as early as 1970, according to this poster. We learn about more animatronics that were at Fallfest, like Mystic Hippo and Carney. We see more events at Fallfest, like the Fazblaster and the Carousel, and we see that Fazbear branding seems to be rampant among Fallfest. The strangest thing of all, though, is that most of the minigames about Fallfest end in a fire, which seems important. Much of the event, though, is still shrouded in mystery. We still get very little direct information about Fallfest. It's just more so being acknowledged that it happened at all. And then Secret of the Mimic came out. Whew, that was some sleep. I must have been really tired. Now the question is, what door should I pick? Oh hey, a sponsor. Today's video is brought to you by Fume. Nice. Fume is a flavored air device that's designed to help people quit vaping and smoking by breaking the hand-to-mouth cycle. Straight away, Fume is not a vape or e-cig or anything like that. I am personally against those things and I would never sponsor or promote them on my channel. There's no nicotine, batteries, vapor, or anything like that. Just all natural flavored cores that you draw your breath through for flavor. Fume is a weighted, twisty, fidget-friendly device that gives your hand a better option for when cravings arrive. And we're right at that point of the year when cravings are starting to rear their ugly heads. A month away from our New Year's resolutions and some of us are starting to crack. I've been trying to focus more on work, and honestly, having my Fume on my desk right next to where I'm working has been a huge help for when I start to get distracted and need a little bit of brain stimulation to help keep focused. And with my favorite flavor, crisp mint, it tastes amazing when I draw my breath through it. If you're ready to break the habit, now's a great time to try Fume. Right now, when you grab a Journey Pack, you'll get a free Fume topper when you use my code RYTOAST at checkout. The Fume topper adds a soft, replaceable, chewable mouthpiece, giving your mouth something safe to chew when cravings hit. Grab this offer while it's available. Head to tryfume.com, that's tryfum.com/RYTOAST and use code RYTOAST to get your free Fume topper with a Journey Pack today. Thanks again to Fume for sponsoring today's video. Well, thinking ain't working, so let's just pick the door on the left, and if I end up back here, I'll pick the next door. This is the first FNAF game that really directly addressed what Fallfest could be, and even then, it's not that direct. We learned that Murray's costume manor was heavily involved with Fallfest, to the point that Fiona, the wife of Edwin Murray, decided that it was important for her to go to Fallfest and make sure everything was being run correctly. It seems like Murray's Costume Manor wasn't just providing attractions and costumes, but rather possibly running the whole thing. And we finally get an answer about that fire from Fallfest, albeit not a direct one. But it's about as direct as any information in this franchise gets. From the audio logs, we learn that Fiona died at the Fallfest she went to go help with. That, paired from the fact that in Moon.exe, there's a burnt bridal statue, seemingly representing Fiona, with a Fallfest snow globe at her feet. This, and some other evidence sprinkled throughout the game, make it pretty safe to assume that Fiona went to Fallfest, there was a tragic fire, and she died. Not only is this a horrible tragedy, but this, to an extent, set in motion the Mimic's entire storyline. Sure, it seems like Edwin was working on the Mimic before Fiona died, but it's her death that prompts him to use the Mimic as a pseudo-babysitter, which then leads down the path of making her act like Fiona, and then, David dies, and all of this falls into place after Fiona's death at Fallfest. But what matters most here is from the evidence we have, it seems like the Fallfest was under the jurisdiction of Murray's Costume Manor, and in a fire, Fiona died. We can assume that Fallfest ended after that, right? Not only was Murray's Costume Manor bleeding money at that point, but I can't imagine that Fiona died at the Fallfest, and then a year later, Edwin was like, let's do it again. Public trust aside, it seems like it'd be a sore spot, no? So then, what's the deal? That's pretty much all the information we have on Fallfest. There's some speculation we had before Secret of the Mimic, but that's pretty much made redundant with evidence that either bolstered that speculation or denied it. Like the fact that in the Dark Carnival DLC of Special Delivery, you play through a section that really feels like Fallfest, but it's filled with fire hazards, implying there was a fire. After Help Wanted 2 and Secret of the Mimic, duh, yeah, there was a fire. But still, the overarching question remains. Why does this matter? How does it even fit into the timeline? As far as why it would matter, it seems like the Mimic has some personal trauma related with Fallfest. Whether that be inherited programmed memories of Fiona or what, it's hard to tell. But if Help Wanted is a creation of the Mimic, and if Help Wanted 2 is in any way influenced by the Mimic, we get continuous depictions of Fallfest next to fires. Every Help Wanted 2 minigame ends in a fire. In the maze in Help Wanted and in Princess Quest, that maze is populated by a Foxy that's on fire. I mean, going another layer deep, you could argue Foxy is a representation of Fiona. We know for a fact she created the Roxy character, it seems likely she created the Foxy character too. So how pertinent is it that in a Fallfest minigame, there's a Foxy on fire? It seems like art therapy almost for the Mimic. Well, combine all of this with one other thing we learn about in Murray's Costume Manor. That being Fazbear's business practices, and what they did to Murray's Costume Manor in the 70s. Throughout the game, we get several emails and audio logs about what Fazbear was doing to Murray's Costume Manor as a business, and either Edwin had gone fully paranoid at the end of destroying his own business, or William Afton was pretty directly orchestrating the downfall of Murray's Costume Manor. Frankly, the latter is more likely. I'm honestly very willing to accept that William Afton was personally destroying this company. It seems pretty in character that before he was even a child-murdering evil guy, he was already doing slimy business tactics. Like, he's not necessarily a child killer yet, but he is an evil, greedy, manipulative capitalist. Sorry, that was redundant. I could have just said capitalist. We know Murray's Costume Manor was struggling for cash, and around the end of their run, they accepted a massive contract from Fazbear. Build us this big fake pizzeria, put a bunch of animatronics in it, and we'll call it a day. But as they kept working on this contract, to get that big payday, they kept being stalled more and more by Fazbear, getting orders to change things or undo things. And the contract went on so long that they went under before they could ever finish it. Not to mention that William Afton was actively poaching employees from Murray's Costume Manor as this went on, promising higher wages and better positions. And just when they were at their lowest and about to fully dissolve, William Afton swoops in, offers to buy up the entire company, give Murray a position as engineer, and let them keep working as they were, retaining all assets and projects under the Fazbear brand. It was a way to not only knock out a competitor, but gain a powerful asset. It was a savvy business practice, which is why it was evil. And if Fallfest is an MCM subsidiary, then we do in fact have a timeline. One that actually makes a lot of sense, because at that point, Fazbear Entertainment would be the ones who suddenly owned Fallfest after everything went down. So let's go over the full timeline of Fallfest and see how it fits into the grander FNAF timeline. Fallfest was one of the best ideas that Murray's Costume Manor had ever come up with, holding an annual festival that not only built community around them and built public trust in the company, but it's the perfect way to showcase their inventions and creations for potential buyers and investors. After all, if they have this incredibly successful festival that they hold every year with their own technology, you can too if you make a purchase. It's a win-win-win. And it was perfect for a time until it wasn't. Until one fateful day when the Fallfest had a very public and very tragic fire that resulted in at least the death of Fiona Murray. Quick aside, some people have argued that the fire at Fallfest was on purpose. Either Edwin planned it for insurance fraud not knowing Fiona would be there, or William Afton did it to ruin the company. But honestly, I've looked at both of these arguments, and I don't think they hold much water. After all, the William Afton angle is strange. He was already crippling the company before committing arson. It seems like an unnecessary risk. And then as far as Edwin's insurance fraud thing, the only evidence for that is the one message where somebody mentions hearing Fiona talking at night after she supposedly died and questions why he would fake her death if it was possibly for insurance fraud. But I think that message isn't meant to imply Edwin did the fire on purpose, but rather imply that the employees don't trust Edwin anymore because they can hear M1 in the basement. Regardless, there does not seem to be enough evidence for me to believe that this fire was set on purpose. And if the most obvious answer is that it was just an accident, then I'm gonna go with that until proven otherwise. Regardless, this fire definitively soured the image of Fallfest. Even if public trust didn't immediately erode overnight, it's highly improbable that Edwin would the very next year run it again. So, like many aspects of Murray's Costume Manor, the Fallfest faded to obscurity, and over the next few years it finally bankrupted. At least, until new management came into town. When Fazbear bought up all of Murray's Costume Manor, it also obtained all of its subsidiaries, which would have included Fallfest, which meant Fazbear now had the very same opportunity to do what Murray's Costume Manor was doing: build public trust, build brand recognition, and show off their shiny new technology. And what better timing than about a decade or so after the initial tragedy, when all the dust is settled, to line it up with the brand new Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. We know for a fact that that restaurant opened in 1983, and we have the Fallfest 83 that we see in Help Wanted. Maybe these dates aren't just a coincidence. Maybe this was the very same year that Fazbear opened Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in general, using Fallfest as a way to celebrate it, but now with Fazbear branding all over the place. And this Fallfest might have been a tradition that continued longer than we thought. It probably stopped happening around the 90s when everything terrible was going on with Fazbear, but we do get evidence from Special Delivery that events like Fallfest still happen in the modern era. Maybe they brought it back when the Security Breach Pizzaplex was making infinite money. I have half a mind that the next time we encounter the Mimic, it will be at this very same modern Fallfest, something that seemingly the Mimic would hate and want to stop. Meanwhile, we can try to stop the Mimic while we're there, and it would make for a pretty cool set dressing. And that's Fallfest. That's everything we know about it tried to form into some recognizable shape. I hope it made sense. I think it did, but let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. And don't forget to go to tryfume.com/rytoast and use code RYTOAST to get a free Fume topper with your journey pack today. Thank you again to Fume for sponsoring today's video. I usually point you somewhere specific, but I'm gonna let YouTube figure it out. YouTube thinks you'll like this video. I think you will too. If you want your fan art featured on the channel, make sure to share with #ToastArt. A huge thank you to the best channel members, the Dough Risers, and until next time, as always, stay toasty, slices.